Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before. And welcome to my wrap up of all of the books I read in September in order to summon fall. Now, if you are new here, I typically like to do my wrap-ups as I'm reading, come to you after I'm fresh from 3 or 4 books and give you these wrap-ups and clips. Now, since I haven't done that in a minute, I want to do the same today, but pair it with some fun autumn settings, places that I've been hoping to go for a while, just to make it fun for me to film. So I do have reservations to go to an apple orchard today, and I will be taking you along with me. If you're just here to hear about the books that you're interested in, there are going to be timestamps down below. If you'd like to stay a spell with me, that's great too. I'm just glad that you're watching. So let's get into it, starting with my first read of September and a buddy read. That is Fantasy Lover by Sherrilyn Kenyon. I read this with Crystal from Books for Forever After and Lynn's Romance Library. This is set in New Orleans. We're following Grace, and we learn through her public embarrassment at a coffee shop, compliments of her best friend, who I absolutely loved. I loved her. That she hasn't been intimate with anybody in the last 4 years. And as a birthday gift, her best friend gives her a book to summon the sex god, Julian of Macedon. And Grace doesn't really take paranormal things seriously. She thinks it's a joke, and she summons him accidentally, leaving her with a Greek general who is a fish out of water when it comes to modern times, and he's compelled to pleasure her. And instead of treating him like every other woman that summoned him and learning that he's actually been enslaved by a curse, she aims to break it. It is their slow burn romance. This was a continuation of just my paranormal nostalgia reads, where it has markers of just that campy, self-referential humor, okay, calling attention to itself. It was also really heavy in terms of their backstories and trauma. He was a complete cinnamon roll, took care of her. I was thoroughly entertained, okay? I ended up rating it 4 stars, and I really want to continue on because I found this to be more heartwarming than I was anticipating for it to be in terms of their emotional connection and how the romance unfolded pacing wise. This was a slow burn with a sex god. Oh, I loved it so much. The things that he did in devotion to her, I absolutely loved. So again, I rated this 4 stars. Changing my battery has enabled this segue because another ancient hero that is a complete fish out of water when it comes to modern times is Frederick from My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. I adored this. Frederick puts an ad out for a roommate as a means to get caught up to contemporary times to conceal his identity. Yet our heroine doesn't know that. She just knows that this apartment is priced way too well, okay, in this economy, and it's too good to pass up because she's being evicted. So she answers it, and it's the start of their slow burn romance. It just felt like a crush, where his ancient speech, chivalry, interest in her artistry is so endearing, and it slowly turns into him growing feelings for her, which he finds incredibly inappropriate. I just found their romance to be so sweet, and it was hilarious reading Frederick trying to get caught up to speed. He didn't know how to price the apartment. He doesn't even know what appliances should be in his kitchen if he's trying to be masquerading as a modern man, or how to order a cup of coffee. Him getting all the way together through her tutelage was absolutely a delight to read. It's so sweet and heartwarming between them, and yeah, it's wholesome and it's cozy. And I also like the letters that they leave for each other because of their differing sleep schedules. Those start to become more elaborate and develop. It was just a fun time. I rated it 4.5 stars. I also had a lot of fun with A Dead and Stormy Night by Steffanie Holmes. This is a buddy read I did with Miss Hannah Blackwell, and I'm so glad that we did. We've since read the second book. In the first one, we are introduced to Nevermore Bookstore and know of a curse that enables classical literary villains to come to life through our heroine, who is led back to her small hometown after losing her dream job in fashion due to the betrayal of her best friend. And when she arrives after answering this absolutely hilarious job posting, clearly the owner is trying to scare people off, she lands the job. She can buffet his ire. And of course, as soon as she starts, dun dun dun, her best friend is found dead in the shop. And it looks like she done it. So we're getting the amateur sleuthing. We're getting the overarching mystery to the curse and why these characters are coming to life. This is a cozy mystery as well as reverse harem. I loved how the reverse harem was handled because it is a slow burn. In fact, this is steamy, but she's not having it with all of the heroes. And the only reason why she's even able to entertain steam is because of the heavier element of her chronic illness that she has been concealing, where she is slowly losing her sight. And so I wasn't expecting that part of this, as well as for her to really be building relationships with each of the heroes. So I loved it. Now the mystery was easily solvable for me. I think book 2, with all the messy small town drama and that twist, there's no way I could have predicted that. So they do get better. But I rated this 3.5. I was thoroughly entertained, and I am invested in figuring out all of the quagmires when it comes to the paranormal reasons for why these literary characters are out of their books. I love it. So next, I think I'll move into a book that I finally got back to. I started Berries and Greed by Mayne for Summerween, but I just so happened to be at Disney World at the time, so I never finished it. I finally did in the month of September. This is an MF monster romance. It's very sweet. There's soft femdom in here, and I just loved the domesticity of it all because they are roommates. We're following Greed, who is a monster in this monstrous world. He's a recluse, an artist, and he's very lonely. And that has led him to, I don't know, assuage his curiosity about the human cult that worships his kind. He goes there out of desperation in order to claim a roommate to, I don't know, watch trash TV with and maybe share a few dinners. It's that bad. He needs some social interaction, yet he does have social anxiety. And when he arrives, he learns that this cult that worships his kind is also a sex cult, which completely creeps him out. He's trying to make his exit when Beryl lances him with her piercing gaze. She seems to be the only one among them who hasn't drank the Kool-Aid. We quickly learn that she was raised in this sex cult as a means of survival, but she definitely hasn't adopted the ideology, and they enter into this arrangement that's mutually beneficial. She finally gets to leave and start her life free by letting her cult believe that she's been picked by the greater being as his mate, and he gets the company that he desperately needs. And they end up moving in together. Again, she ends up starting the new chapter of her life, getting a job, learning what's out there on the internet, this society, and because of that, it really forces him out of his shell in order to teach her. And they're both new to kink. This is really a friends to lovers. It is a slow burn. It's cozy because Greed really likes his nights in, and I loved this between them. Now, I also like how this really highlights the importance of being creative when it comes to this theme, the representation that penetration isn't king when it comes to sex between couples. The heroine in this book, Beryl, has vaginitis, and so that's very painful for her. And due to some surprises when it comes to the monstrous anatomy, they do have to get creative, and I really love that note. One thing that's a red herring that I'll be very quick about is the negotiations within this book. One of my favorite things in a BDSM romance is when they negotiate. I think a character's hard limits are very revealing, and how they engage in that scene is very telling for me. Now, this negotiation felt like I was reading a billionaire age gap where there's an alpha hero that's been doing dominance and kink for 10 years, and that felt a little out of place when it came to Beryl's characterization, but I was able to get over that fairly quickly. I feel like a BDSM romance is done well when it feels like the couple is fated. I have said this before. Every cylinder has to be lined up just so in order for that door to open. And so I, of course, enjoyed the pegging in this book and some of the things that they explore together in this book, but really it's the emotional development along with the rise in tension within this theme when it comes to the acts that they're doing that really gets me going when it comes to the romance. I love that element of it, feeling like they are fated, and through their play and their kink, their order to heal together. And so this was definitely that. It is so freaking heartwarming and sweet, despite it seemingly being dark, but it isn't. So I loved this. Another book that I finally finished in the month of September was Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver, who I absolutely adore. This was a friends to lovers dark romantic comedy between two serial unalivers that should be rivals, but but forge this very interesting friendship through an annual meetup where they race to kill their marks. It's like a vigilante competition of unaliving, if you will. And I loved their dynamic. I love her brand of Psycho Sunshine when it comes to darker elements. And it might sound strange coming out of my mouth, I really enjoyed the nature of the killing. I mean, at least in the way that the heroine stages her bodies, it was masterful. It is a skillful graphic display of poetic justice. When Brynne Reaver writes body horror, I'm always fascinating and giving her snaps. I don't know how she does it, but the hero is completely gone for her. I loved the cat and mouse game when it came to their friendship, because it is quite dangerous. They should not trust each other, yet they are the only ones who understand. And these acts of care are muscles that they're both not used to exercising. And so I adore this. I absolutely did. I rated it 5 stars, like I do for many Brynne Reaver books. And I'm gonna take this opportunity to say, if you like St. Abby's Mindfuck series, you need to pick up Black Sheep. I absolutely adore it. This is my moment to plug her. Read this book if you like St. Abby's Mindfuck series. That's all I have to say. But I need to get off to my reservation at Gilcrease Orchard. I will be taking you along with me and trying to find some books to theme with that location. So I will see you in the next one. Did come prepared to fill you in on You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I can't think of a better book to pair with an autumnal setting. I mean, check the freaking cover here. It screamed fall. This is inspired by When Harry Met Sally, a favorite of mine. And so if it ends up being too loud, editing me will cut in. But I do have to say that I saw the When Harry Met Sally inspiration in this. Our heroine Ari is an up-and-coming comedian, although she hasn't written any jokes of late in New York, and our hero is a buttoned-up chef and romantic, and it just felt like Ari was this chaotic storm that keeps bearing witness to all of his misfortunes. They have these accidental run-ins that almost feel not so coincidental, and they end up forging this reluctant friendship out of their misfortunes. And I will say what I enjoyed about this was the dialogue. It's smart, it's quick-witted, it felt organic, and the characters did feel real. However, I wasn't really convinced on the romance between these two. The angst reached a point for me that when the time came for the third act, I wasn't sure if it was best that they be together in the end. And so I ultimately ended up rating this 3 stars. Although I really enjoyed the dialogue and the side characters, I think the third act took a turn for me. Ooh, it's getting a little loud here, I apologize. But there's a lot of push and pull and a lot of angst, which I typically enjoy, but the heroine pushes him away so much, and she's so incapable of being vulnerable and so just caught up by her own emotional hang-ups that I questioned whether or not they should be together, whether or not that was the best thing for both of them, where I was really hoping to be rooting for them and knowing without a shadow of a doubt, just like with When Harry Met Sally, that they belong together. And this didn't really fit the bill in terms of the things that I'm kind of looking for within a romance. So I ultimately ended up rating it 3 stars, and I'll see you with the next book in the car, because this is a little chaotic. I hope it didn't translate that way. See you soon. It is now the next day and time for me to rope in the next 3 reads into, I'm going to try to rope them into baked goods, pastries, because I did secure the apple cider donuts. They are delicious, as well as the peanut butter and the apple cider, and I failed to get apples for said peanut butter, because quite frankly, I was overheating out there, my camera was overheating out there, so we're wrapping this up on the next day. But baked goods, pastries, I absolutely have to talk about A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I absolutely love this. This is a cozy fantasy following Mona, a young witch with magic, who's not doing anything extraordinary, being that her power is to manipulate bread dough, but it does come very handy in her aunt's bakery. So I absolutely adore this. She doesn't see herself as anything extravagant or special. There are wizards that are defending her city borders, and there's also this serial unaliver that is going around and taking out powerful magical beings. So essentially, she should be safe. Yeah, this starts out with her finding a dead body in her aunt's bakery, and how she goes into investigating, trying to clear her name, the adventure in evading the authorities that aim to pin this murder on her. And all of the side characters that help her along the way, including her tiny familiar, I've been calling him that. He's a tiny little gingerbread, he's stabby and he's feisty, and I loved it so much. And I just loved how her power that seems so like useless to her outside of that bakery is really what saves the day, and what she's able to do with dough was incredible. I had so much fun with it. Also, this meditation on feeling a little bit resentful and angry as a young witch that a lot of the perils within this cozy fantasy and on this quest rely on her to fix, when there are people in positions of power and adults that basically left their post and failed to suit up and show up. And so I really liked that little meditation, and I loved this book. So everything I pick up from T. Kingfisher, I absolutely adore, and I have to just start making my way through the backlist completely. Another baker that I met in the month of September is from My Favorite Kidnapper by Melanie Moreland. This is a first for me from her, and I have to pick up more because I had so much fun with this. This is following a pastry chef. The confections that she's concocting are simply artistry, and the hero learns just that when he attends his niece's wedding and stumbles across the spread that she is creating in the kitchen. He steals a nibble, I mean in more than one way, but he just becomes completely obsessed and enthralled with her spirit, her ire, her talent, the way that she's commanding control within said kitchen, and the way that she is refusing to admit her attraction to him. And there is something about a freaking obsessive, possessive, okay, and I don't know, coercive hero that I find thoroughly entertaining to read. I find it so entertaining. And it also has this caveat where not only is he making sure that all her roads lead back to him, he's alleviating her problems along the way, okay? Not just in the bedroom. He's alleviating her financial struggles, the way that she's being exploited. He's handling all of her issues, okay? There should be no reason why she can't accept his offer to have her bake him a cake a day for 60 days in his kitchen in Italy. Among other things. I absolutely adored this, and he does sort of kidnap her because he's not really allowing her to give an answer. It's just what's happening. And this is all about how her feelings and even her cat that he brings along with them betray her. Okay, betray her. So I had so much fun with this. I highly suggest that you pick it up. I rated this 4 stars, and I will be reading more from her. And lastly, when I think about pastries, when I think about baked goods now, I think about Remain Nameless, okay, by Hey Jude 19. This is Harry Potter fan fiction. This is a Draco and Hermione pairing. I read some of this on AO3, and I listened to the majority of it on ETL Echo, okay? I got my own pastries out. I figured out how to get that pod thick on my television, and you couldn't tell me anything. I lapped this up because we are meeting Draco and Hermione 10 years after the war. And we meet Draco when he's just in debilitating trauma, PTSD. And he has sought sort of refuge in a muggle coffee shop where no one knows him. It's become part of his routine. He's not sleeping well. He can't keep food down. And on this particular day, unlike every other, he decides to go to this coffee shop early. And that is how he runs into Hermione. It is about their slow burn romance that is just seeped and found family and healing. Draco is in therapy. Draco is in awe that she's even entertaining him with her time. And I just love how they blended their lives together. I loved seeing all of my favorite characters, and the big thing with Hermione in this is that all of her loved ones are paired off, they're coupled off, and she's really been exiled from a personal connection with her family due to events that happened during the war and what she had to do. And so it's just them meeting in the middle, and I just adored this romance. It has all of the feels, all of the markers that I'm looking for when it comes to romance, and really handles all of the practical reasons for why they wouldn't be able to be together, the emotional. It is absolutely one of the best fanfics that I've ever read. So if you have the time, I will have the AO3 link and the podfic link down below. I highly suggest you pick it up for fall season. It's perfection. It truly is. Now I have to go to work. We are going to go to another location because it is on the strip, and I will wrap this up after that. To you fresh after securing the bag. I am in the parking lot at work, so if it's loud, I apologize in advance. I was so excited to go to the Stranger Things store. I was meaning to go this month because they have a particular bag that's supposed to go on sale that isn't there yet, so I'll just have to go back, but I love it there. It's like walking through a set piece, the different rooms. It's so much fun. And I think the most obvious tie-in to that store is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This is YA horror. This is a favorite from last month. I am so happy that I finally picked it up. This is, of course, about Abby's best friend's possession. We meet her as an adult. She is a single mother, divorcee, driving back to her hometown where all of the events of this book transpired, and she's attending the exorcist funeral that saved her life. I loved how her voice matures throughout this book. Their friendship, it's campy, it's comedic. I absolutely adored this. It just made me feel so nostalgic. I mean, every single chapter title is an 80s song. And although, I grew up in the Beanie Babies, Gigapets, Pogs, Pokemon, Blockbuster, MapQuest, and AOL chat room days. If any of those words sounded off synapses for you, then we are kin. Okay, but this made me yearn for my own nostalgia. I absolutely adored it. I felt like this was a very fun exploration of a messy friendship, if you will, and I loved the way that it ended. There is a trigger warning for pet murder and animal death, and as I said in my Finally Fall book tag, where this is absolutely featured because it is a favorite, that I believe that there's enough lead up time to that scene for you to skip it and not miss a beat. So highly recommend My Best Friend's Exorcism. I think it's perfect for Stranger Things. Best Friends 1980s, yes. And then the next book is really just a play on words. I feel like I'm forcing it, but you know, I set these parameters just to have some fun, and that is Not So Perfect Strangers by Alice Stratton. Excuse me, but this is following two women that are surviving domestic abuse, how their paths cross, and the decision that Tasha Jenkins makes in the beginning of this book that changes everything for the both of them. Now, we meet Tasha Jenkins the night that she has left her husband with her son. And when her son decides to go back home because he doesn't want to leave his father, he doesn't want to leave his school or girlfriend, she decides to go back into her abusive husband's clutches. And on her way to do so, she runs into Madison, who's out in the middle of the street, banging on her car door window and begging to be let in. And behind her is an angry man in her pursuit. She lets her in, they forge a bond, and they both have a need to get out of their situations. I love how this book does a lot of showing. It's not heavy-handed, it's just showing you their very different and separate and individual journeys in their marital trauma and need to get out, and how Madison's idea of the way that they could help each other going off the rails completely. I absolutely was shocked at how this ended. I was not expecting that. I truly was not. I had a very good time with this. This was very entertaining. I loved the social commentary and just how it is all laid out. That's all I'm gonna say. I rated this 4 stars. I was really happy to find a thriller by a Black female author, and she used to be a crime news reporter, so I could definitely see that in this book. But I had a very good time with this. It is very rambunctious up in here. I apologize for any jarring jump cuts. We will convene at home to the library. We are back in the library. I'm finally going to wrap up this wrap up with reads that I got from you on Instagram. I was trying to desperately avoid a reading slump while not feeling well, and I am so thankful to all of the books that I got through that post on IG. If you interacted with it and sent me a recommendation, I thank you so much. I was not expecting that. I got Remain Nameless from there, which is now an all-time favorite. And I got so many reminders that Salt Kiss by Sierra Simone was out. So I'm incredibly thankful for all of these recommendations, and I will be getting to them in the month of November after the avalanche of all of these new releases. But I had to start with Claiming the Orc's Heart by Lyonne Riley. This is a rec from Cynthia from Kindle After Dark. She's given me so many recs and spoiled me with so many books. I have an entire vlog plan just filled with her recommendations alone. And this was top tier. Okay, when it comes to monster romance, it's a MF, dislike to love, and I really thought that the plot, the angst, the hate steam, and the dynamic between them was just so unique and really sound, okay? For a short amount of pages, we're dealing with a heroine that's the captain of a city guard, if you will, set in a world where humans and orcs are warring. And she has a new general that's coming onto her ranks who just so happens to be an orc who does not respect her authority. This city guard is unique in that it's a peace treaty of sorts, aiming to get them to work together. And he's definitely taking her orders while seething. He's harboring a lot of hurt, and they are tasked with going out together on a private mission to seek out the head of this criminal organization. And where this city is on the outskirts of this desert wasteland. They get caught in a sandstorm, are forced into proximity while waiting it out, and all of their curiosities about the other in terms of their species and their reluctant intrigue unfolds from there. I thought that this was incredibly spicy. I'm telling you, the hate steam was on point, but also the plot and their backstories and what ends up following after, being that she is a woman in a position of power. And I will leave it at that. I had so much fun with this. Like, my mouth was dropping and I was DMing Cynthia like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Just with all of the tension and the anger and the hurt and the years of war and trauma and the release between them. I love this so much. It's a top tier monster romance. Then I moved into Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This is a recommendation that I got from Tori from Novel Life. And I'm so thankful that she recommended that I listen to the audiobook, because this really ushered in my interest in checking out cozy horror potentially. That is what it read like to me. It's set in a small town featuring a heroine or a main character, because this really read like women's fiction as well. She is starting over after a breakup in a relationship where she really lost her identity, and so she's there to not only start over but find herself. She meets a woman within the town that's giving off immaculate vibes. Okay, she's giving off celebrity. Everyone seems to know of her, fawn over her, and this is about their budding friendship and all of the secrets that unfold as that transpires and as she is trying to reclaim her power back in her life. It was very eerie and atmospheric as to what is actually happening with this newfound friend, her newfound sense of identity, and her role in the town going forward. That's all I'm gonna say. I really enjoyed this. I rated it 4 stars. Next, I got into Salt in the Freaking Wound by Sierra Simone. Finally, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful. I mean, it was traumatic trying to get a wristband to try to get this book, but it was worth it. I am so thankful. Oh my gosh, the setup is different. I apologize. I had to change out my battery. Is it one of my videos if that's not happening? Now, this is one of the best prequel novellas that I have read. Honestly, I love how Sierra Simone ushered in her theme of religion through our heroine Isolde, who's quite literally a soldier for God. I mean, the woman is lethal, trained by nuns in combat and aims to be one herself. She is also the daughter of a very prominent business tyrant who would like to see her work for the family business instead of throwing her life away to be a nun. And I loved this book, not only for the arranged marriage trope, which I typically am like reaching for when it comes to mafia romance, but it also recasts fake dating because she's being forced to marry Mark, who at the beginning of this book, their meet cute was very foreshadowing and very telling. They have an exchange where he outsmarts her in her combat training and is there where she vows to never feel that small again. And yet she was being forced to marry Mark, who is the owner of a Lioness, which is a very secret and affluent sex club, which goes against everything that she's worked for. And she has to fake a BDSM pairing between them submission in order to sell this marriage. And what I loved about it is that she is not quick to kneel. It doesn't fit well on her. Submission is not something that she's interested in. She's asking questions. It also has that theme that I just reach for when reading a very fierce heroine that is being coerced to barter her freedoms at the behest of men. And I love how she bucks against that in this. She's also lost her mother. I just thought this is a very great beginning of the trilogy where it will be MMF. We meet the other hero at the end of this book, and I continued on with Salt Kiss because like 5 people reminded me that that was out. I don't know how it missed me. I adored this. I rated it 4.5 stars off the bat. This is a bodyguard romance following Tristan in his head through his POV. He has recently left the army. He is just aimless within his life, dealing with a lot of PTSD and drama. And I have to tell you, Sierra Simone knows how to write the emotional landscape of a character. I knew exactly why he was taking this job. I knew exactly why he builds Mark up in his mind in such a way. I know exactly what his pain points are, what he's starving for emotionally. This felt atmospheric, but sort of describing the markers that make up his character through him taking this job as Mark's bodyguard and just starving for connection. One of my things about this book, and also within the prequel novella that I really enjoyed, was that there is a point where he, again, has built Mark up so high on this pedestal and is willing to take mere crumbs, okay, when it comes to any sort of relationship with him sexually. And there was a point at this book, because I wasn't in Mark's head, where I just wanted Mark to be knocked down off that pedestal. I didn't want Tristan to prostrate himself for Mark. I wanted Mark to have some sort of chink in his armor, some sort of misstep, stumble, trip. And I think that I'm going to get that. Mark's character is this larger than life enigma, black smoke that you can't grab, mysterious, 3 steps ahead of everyone. He is sharp and a shark. And I want him to be tripped up by his romance between Isolde and Tristan. And I think I'm going to get that. I loved the ending of this. I ended up rating this 4.5 stars as I opened with, and I had a great time. I mean, September was the ball. October has been very busy as well. I am going to close out here because I feel like I've been talking long enough, but I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for giving me recommendations if you have. Happy reading. I know that we have an onslaught of new releases out there, so thank you for joining me. I hope you can consider subscribing and sticking around, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.